Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, before we get started, Dana, it's been a little while since you and I saw each other. What's been going on with you?
I know it has been, man, just playing really catching up from the mega camp hangover. You know, you get there and do so much and it's like, whew. And then actually, unfortunately, I got a little bug afterwards. So been playing catch up and getting back into everything. What about you?
Yeah, same things. I feel like when were we, where was I even at mega camp? You know, when you and I decided that we were going to do this session on some of our top things we learned at mega camp, I had to think for a second because sometimes I think we go so fast into the next thing that blur past some of the things we did the prior week, right?
Always.
Which we kind of had a fun trip after mega camp. We took the group of 26, was it 26 of us? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
26 of us, we took a big bus, left Austin, Texas, drove to Waco, Texas, and saw the infamous Magnolia. Of course, we had a great time shopping around Waco and Magnolia, and I was just inspired by what the two of them have. I've never watched their show. Do you watch their show?
Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah, I love them. What they have built, you are right. It is insane. I mean, just the way they've transformed that town even.
Yeah. And I've really learned to not see what people see out on the outside, what we call the front stage, but what's going on behind the stage, what's the backstage stuff. And so I spent the whole time there because while everybody else was shopping around, I spent the whole time kind of looking at, you know, kind of what they've created and how they've been able to create that. I think we tried to get in their restaurant. We were going to take all of us to the restaurant. It was an hour and a half wait on a Friday morning at 10:30 or something.
Right when they opened. Yeah.
Right when they opened. So we said, heck with that. We'll just go eat at the food trucks. But anyway, that was pretty impressive. I really learned a lot from looking at that. I learned that you can take an idea and an interest, which if you haven't read her book, I can't remember what her first book is. It's kind of her autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what the name of it is. We'll try to find that and put it in the show notes. But I loved her book, and I see how all this transpired from her little idea of a store that she originally had. Well, first, I think she left Waco and went out to California or somewhere to try to do something big. I don't know. And maybe in film and all that other stuff. And then wound up coming back, if I remember the story correctly, because her dad had a tire store and that's how she met Chip. But anyway, I never watched the show, but I was amazed at what they've created. So my brain just went nuts trying to think, oh, wow, you know, I'm not thinking big enough. I need to think bigger. And, you know, how fun and how amazing you can make your life if you just kind of let go of your limiting beliefs and thoughts and just go for it. So anyway, that's one of the things that I learned on our Magnolia trip. But let's you and I jump into kind of some of the key things that we learned at mega camp so that we can share with our audience that didn't get to be there.
Yeah, perfect. I had so many notes, so we can just kind of go back and forth if you want to. I think so. First of all, I guess I would start by saying I love mega camp because to me it's totally different than any other convention. When you have, 15,000 of the top agents coming together from not just Keller Williams. There were several people there from other companies as well. But being able to, have to spend that quality time with Gary Keller is, that is, I think, probably everybody's favorite. But then two, to have these panelists to get up on stage and basically just share, their successes and everything that they're doing and down to the details. I mean, I don't know where else you can find that. So I thought, and I heard such great feedback this year about just different ideas with the way that the industry is changing. So a couple of technical things right off the bat was Gary's opening session of, recession. He believes is around the corner. Could be 6 months, could be 2 years. Nothing too crazy, but definitely we're so high. Home sales are down just a little bit. Home prices are about 4% increase, which is what we want to see. We have about 4 months of supply of inventory right now, still in a seller's market, but expecting that to start trending more towards a buyer's market. And then unemployment is at an all-time low still, which is what we want to see. And then lastly, he talked about builders and new construction, and that's been at kind of a high, with higher price ranges in new construction, and mainly just because of the low inventory. So they're really expecting new construction to kind of flatten off, over the next few months, probably 6 to 12 months. So I think it's just important, one, to just know where we're at in the industry. And then two, more importantly than that, know where we're headed. Right.
Yeah. Well, and you've lived through a couple of recessions in your business, haven't you? What would be let's give them a couple of tips or advice that, based on that information, what would you go back and do and look at with your business?
Man, first of all, I would start cutting expenses now so that you have money when the recession does hit and when the shift does come. I will never forget, I took a class from Gene Rivers, and he said, you want to be the one who has the billboards when nobody else can afford the billboards.
Yeah.
So start cutting your expenses. And then two, I would say lead gen's got to be the focus.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same things. And I think people that really get ahead are the people that do the opposite of what you would tend to do in any kind of market. So in other words, if it's if the market is kind of shrinking, or we're moving towards a recession, most people, would not want to buy anything when the prices are going down. And the reality is you want to be in a position where you can buy something when the prices are going down. So I absolutely agree with the same thing. So, there were so many good things at Mega Camp. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that, again, it was hard to choose two or three, but in Gary's Top 100 Mastermind, he talked a lot about us settling. I think I got this kind of from several different directions. One, I got it from Jim Stovall, which I absolutely loved. If you haven't heard him speak or you don't know who he is, Google him. Find him, go to his talk. I mean, I've heard a lot of speakers in my life because I am a junkie for learning. It was literally one of the best talks I've ever heard anyone give. It was phenomenal. And those that don't know, Jim Stovall, I don't know, would he go blind at college? He was wanting to be in the pro football league, and the pro football player, and he got the news that he was going blind from his trainers. Man, you leave that room so inspired and different inspired, not just motivated for a few minutes. I've thought ever since we left Mega Camp, I've thought about what he said, and kind of it says the same thing. And I'll talk about what I got from him in a minute. But the theme with Gary was the same thing: is we're not thinking big enough and we're settling. And so that was huge for me. Another thing Gary said in his mastermind is who you're in business with will define your career. And I'm always saying to people that who you determine wealth for and who determines wealth for you is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. But I think we can't hear that enough, that your career is going to be defined by the people that you're in business with, whether you're sending them money or they're sending you money, either way. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things he also said was think big, aim high, and get people that are all in. Mm-hmm. This one really struck home with me. We were in the meeting and someone asked the question. Oh, actually, I asked the question. What's realistic or probable? Because I'm always so hard on my own self that I worry when I'm leading people. Am I realistic? Because I watch great leaders have super high standards for people, and I watch that really great people actually rise to those high standards. Yeah. And so I've got two fears, one of being too high and one of being too low. And so I asked the question, and I probably asked it in the wrong way, but anyway, it didn't sit well with him because he doesn't like the words realistic or probable. He believes you just go for super big goals, and until you try something, you don't know what's possible. Mm-hmm. And so one of the guys in the room spoke up and said, I've been, a few years ago when I first started working for Gary, I went to him and I said, we were talking about the goals. And he said, I said to him, well, that those are great. How do I do it? And he looked at me and he said, if I have to tell you how to do it, you're not the right person. Yeah. And that really, I thought, man, that's so true, because great people figure out how to do it. Not that he doesn't coach and consult, and you always coach and consult, but you want to get people that are so all in that if you aren't giving them the answers, they're going to go get them. They're not going to sit around and wait for you to give them their to-do list or their, what they should do to how to reach these goals or hit these goals. So that was huge for me. And he says, I think someone asked, about how long do you give them? And he said, as long as I feel like they're working towards achieving them and they're achieving them, I give them more time. And then if they're not achieving the goals, we just figure out and I help them self-discover, what else should they be doing. And so that was powerful for me. And there were so many other things, but almost, I say I've been sitting in front of him for 20 plus years. And because his belief is every problem we have is solved by who, most of our conversations or around the areas that those of us that are sitting in the room keep bumping our head up against the ceiling on when it pertains to leverage through people. So those are really good. I really enjoyed and we had so much of Gary this time. We not only had him in the top 100, we had him, several other times also?
Yeah, I love that. I just wrote down a ton of stuff that you said. So that kind of walks right into one of my next things that I thought was huge was when Gary and Jay actually did the Think Like a CEO. And I loved the 3 things that they said with that. Number 1 was to create energy. So literally provides purpose and a plan, because you have to create energy, because what you're doing and what you're building should feel alive and it should feel exciting. And then number 2 was engaging talent, which goes with what you just said. It's the people you have to have a relationship with and you're connected to the people. And then number 3 was owning your results. And then he said, through the results can come your profit, obviously, and then philanthropy. You understand your money, you understand the flow of expenses, you understand the market, you own everything about the results. And so what he said, and he said that all 3 of those things could translate with you being a CEO as a spouse, with your children, in your business, whatever. But I love how he ended that. He said, because when you have the energy and the talent, the results come. When you don't have the energy, the talent won't show up, which means the results won't show up. And I thought, man, that's so true.
Say that again, Dana.
Okay, so he said, so number 1 was energy, number 2 was talent, number 3 was the results. And so he said, when you have the energy and the talent, the results come. But when you don't have the energy, then the talent won't show up, which means that the results won't show up. So it really starts with us as the CEO having the energy to be able to attract the talent, to be able to create the results.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. That's great.
Well, and it got me thinking about so many people that, they all the time they say they can't find talent, they can't attract talent. And I really, like, to me, this is like, we should be pointing thumbs, not fingers, because if you're not attracting talent, then something's off with your own energy level. Like do like a self-assessment of where you're at with your energy.
That's such a good point, because I think about over the trajectory of my career, and I remember early on when I was starting to get coaching with Gary, again, his thing has always been about people, leverage through people. And I remember, I think about, he would say things, and I would think, man, when he would say things like, your wealth determiner, and I'm like, who is that? Is that my assistant? Who is that? And then I think about, over time, realizing, like, let's take team leader, for example. When we owned our first Keller Williams office, it's called the Market Center. Honestly, I didn't know how to own an office. I'd never owned an office. My friends that owned offices hated it because, they never made any money out of them. They had to sell real estate to keep the doors open. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. But when he talked about, the role that you should be is the owner and provide the vision and capital and accountability. And I needed to go find a CEO of that opportunity, and they would change everything. And when I think about that, the reason they change everything is they bring an energy. And if they don't bring the right energy, nothing else works out, right? And then if I don't bring the right vision and everything for that opportunity, then I'm not going to attract the talent. But my point on this was the difference between the person, one, I could conceptually understand and see they needed to be then, and I attracted then, and opposed to the person now is like light years difference.
Yeah.
And the number one difference has nothing to do with anybody else. It has all to do with me. Mm-hmm. It has to do with all the work I've done to get my arms around and understand who are those people that are talent that have that energy, and how do I attract them? And so it took all these many years of continually developing myself and looking inside to say, okay, if I don't have the right person, that's on me. I'm not doing something right. There's some piece I'm not providing. So I can kind of connect the dots there and put that together in my own life. And the fact that, when I hired my first person for that role back then compared to now, it's light years difference.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest difference again is me. So I love that point.
Yeah, that was a big takeaway for me, for sure. Did you have another one? I think we should share that millionaire combination. I thought that was huge.
Oh, yes, that one was good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So this was a big one. And I was trying to just look to make sure I have it exactly right. So Gary shared what he calls the millionaire combination for any realtor. And it's basically to net 1 million. And so the combination is 1, 350, 175, 233, 311, 26, and then 7. And we'll put this in our show notes. But basically what that looks like is, so 1 million net looks like 350 closings, 175 listings sold, 233 listings taken, 311 listing appointments. So that's 26 appointments a month and 7 appointments a week. And I thought, okay, if we can just get to the 7 appointments a week, that's where it starts. That's it. And then we just have to, Gary said, behave in a manner to get them.
Yeah, I love that. And, it reminds me of a time years ago that was a huge turning point in my own business. Was I was running, because I'm always running. I'm a runner. And so I remember, but I always try to multitask and listen to things. And I was listening to Tony DeCello on an audio that he did when they interviewed him. And this one little point changed everything for me. He said that his goal was to list a house or sell a house every day. And I literally went straight to the office supply place, bought me a 30-day at a glance calendar, laid it on my desk. And any day I took a listing or took a buyer, I circled a day. So if I took 5 listings that day, I got to circle 5. And, the goal was to get to that point. And it probably took me another good 10 years to get to a place where I either worked with a buyer or sold a buyer, or listed a house or sold a house every day. But that one single focus, people don't realize how powerful that formula could actually be, because it takes all the confusion and all the cobwebs out of things. And I love when someone takes something complicated and makes it simple.
Oh, I love that story. And that's probably why I love this so much, because that's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. If we can just focus on 7 listing appointments per week, that's it. And I thought that was awesome. And he said with that, in order to be able to do that as an agent, you have to have leverage. And then he followed it with this quote that I thought was so good. He said, leverage isn't about making things easier. It's about making sure you're in the right place when an opportunity comes so that you can take it.
Tell me what you think he meant by that.
Okay, so here's what I thought he meant. Here's how I took that. So I think sometimes people think, okay, I'm just going to go have this huge team and have all these people so that I can have all this leverage so that what I can do then becomes easier. And I really think that's why people have like this misconception that, you got to have a 35, 45 person team to be able to net $1 million or to make $1 million. Even let's just talk about gross $1 million. But then really when that one guy, John, I think his name was Brooks. I need to double check that. I can't remember for sure, but from Jacksonville, Florida, got up on stage and had a small team that grossed $1 million and his net was 700,000. I mean, I thought, okay, he's got it down. He's leveraged just enough, but he's still in the business so that then he can make sure that he's in the right place when an opportunity comes and he can take it, because his margins are great. He hasn't, built up a huge team with the, what does Gary call it? The gross. He hasn't grossified it or something, I don't know, and not worried about the net. So he's gotten just enough leverage that he can still focus on the listings as the rainmaker, keep his profit margins in line, and then talk about being able to be ready for another opportunity when it comes. He'll be set.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, he was, of all my panelists, he was probably my favorite.
Me too.
Because he really has got it dialed down to where he's not making it complicated. He's keeping it simple and netting the most money. I loved Jim Stovall so much that I just can't get past his talk. And so one of the things that I wrote down from him, first of all, again, he's the blind guy that went blind at college and just went on to do amazing big things. But, one of the things that he said is we don't fail because we don't know what to do. We fail because we don't do what we know. And I think that's so true because I think success is not complicated. If it's complicated, something's wrong. I think we know everything we need to know. And if we don't, I know that the answer is out there especially in this information age, is out there somewhere. You can get it pretty quickly. And so he says, the problem is we don't do it enough. The things we know to do, we don't do it enough. And I think that brings us back to, we get bored with the mundane and the repetition. And so we want to go look at the new shiny squirrel. I know I do. I'm talking about myself mostly. Chase the new idea and the new thing, when in reality, if you think about the most successful people in the world, they do things that other people are unwilling to do or unwilling to stick with. And so when you think about that, success isn't complicated and we already know what to do. And that's not our problem. The problem is we're not doing what we know and we're not doing enough of it. He had a couple of points. One was he said, we have the right to choose. We are who we are in this world based on our choices. This is where we chose to be. And you're only one quality decision away from choosing something different. And I thought that was really big because I think sometimes we just don't bother to choose. We're just running on default and we're taking one day right after the next day. Tuesday comes after Monday, Wednesday comes after Tuesday. And instead of making a choice and, making a quality decision, that one decision will make the biggest difference of where we are moving forward. And then the second point he made was we all have big ambitions, whether we have them when we're a kid or as a teenager, or as a young adult. And the problem is we all get hung up on hanging on to something, right? And so then he tells the spider monkey story about, if you really study spider monkeys, they couldn't figure out how to catch them. He said, because us in America will buy everything. So he said if they could catch spider monkeys, they'd just send them to the U.S. and we'd buy them, right? And he said, so what they figured out is if they took a bottle and they put one peanut in the bottle, that those spider monkeys would come down out of the trees and stick their hand in there, and you could put a whole pile of peanuts all around that spider monkey, and they're not going to let go of that one peanut in their jar that they can't eat and they can't have, but they're not going to let go of it to get the whole bag of peanuts that's sitting right next to them. I thought that was such an amazing analogy of what we do. We just hang on to either limiting beliefs, or maybe we hang on to garbage from our past, or, whatever it is that we hang on to. And of course we all have them, but anytime I'm thinking I'm not letting go of something that's kind of holding me back, I think of that spider monkey. I think Kim went out, one of our operating principals went out and found online a bunch of spider monkeys.
I saw that. We wrote down so many. I mean, my note, like literally exactly what you read were what I had written down. He was just awesome. And I have not seen his movie, The Ultimate Gift. So I actually have that on my list. I'm dying to find that and watch it. And several people had and said that it was great. The only thing that I had that I don't think you mentioned I love was when he said to think about what's your biggest dream, that destiny that you were put on this planet for, because the dream wouldn't have been placed inside of you if you weren't made to achieve it. And I loved when he said that. I just thought that was so good. And then he said at the very end, he said, hold on to your dreams and wait for the miracle that was to come, because on that miraculous day, your dream as your reality will merge into one. And I thought, man, that's pretty cool too. So it all ties into the thinking bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things he said too, and this kind of lines up with something I think we all tend to settle for, but he says mediocrity is the most selfish pursuit of a human being. And I think most people don't think of it that way. And I think what we don't see is the ripple effect that we could cause, or we could be a part of, if we just went big for everything we do in our life.
Yeah.
If we just went for it and we just, no matter what the fears are, no matter what the limitations are, because one of the things he said that I loved was, for every person who is defeated by their circumstances, I'll show you a person who has the same circumstances he's used the same circumstances as a springboard.
That is so good.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. He was amazing. I'm going to continue. I actually reached out and got his contact information. I'm going to reach out to him. I just loved it. So,
yeah,
and I
incredible.
want to watch the movie. So if you find it, let me know where you find it.
Yeah.
And if we find it, we'll stick a link to it in the show notes.
Yes, for sure. I would love to hear more from him. He was incredible. Gosh, Linda, I was trying to run through and just see any like quick little tips that I thought were really good just for real estate agents.
How about the high touch? Did you write down anything? I heard a lot of common things, and which is not a new thing, but I think even more so than ever because of the fourth industrial revolution, we as agents and leaders have to move more back to a high touch with our people.
Yep. And actually one of these things I wrote down, Jason Abrams said, I love this. He said, you got to become the mayor of real estate for your local market. And one of the best way to do that now is through creating closed Facebook groups and then having events. I mean, really ramping up your client events. People create, which a lot of people have already started creating the closed Facebook groups, but for, neighborhoods, or this specific example was one of the top agents on one of the panels had created a closed group just for investors. And so it's like spiraled into this huge closed Facebook group for investors for their local market. And
yeah, I think that was Rob out of Virginia. And I know he does those because he just reached out to me and said, hey, would you be a guest? Could we Zoom you in? First he asked, could I come? And I couldn't come schedule wise, but he said, could we Zoom you in? Because he's got a whole room full of investors showing up on September the 7th.
Wow.
And so he's got a big day planned for them. So that's Rob. And he's been very intentional about, who he wants to be a hero to, who relationships he wants to build, and also building his own wealth.
Yeah, I thought that was incredible. I took a ton of notes from him. This isn't about the touch, but just because I found it in my notes, I love when Gary said, paying attention to really who you hire, that they are the perfect match for the job, because he said there's no profile for rich people. All different profiles can be rich. We see it all the time, but there is a perfect match for a job that allows them to behave that way, and then they can become rich. And if you really think about it, that's so true. There's tons of different profiles of different, wealthy people, if you will, but making sure that they're they're the perfect match for their role was more important. That was when he was walking through the career visioning process on hiring people, which I just thought was incredible.
Yeah. And I understand that because I remember early on in my hiring experiences, I didn't know that. I didn't understand the difference there. And so I thought, because someone could, like there were so many different facets of people that were being successful, I just thought because if I saw any success in their background, that they would automatically be a success at what I was putting them in. And I had to learn the lesson the hard way. That's not true.
Right.
And I love the fact that, once you understand that and you understand that at a deep level, there's no good or bad person. Is that a fit? And if it's not a fit, then, and I think this leads to, when you understand this, being able to part ways with anybody in your business or on your team without doing so much collateral damage that they completely leave your organization, or they leave and you never have an open door. I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
I believe that if you genuinely care about the person, you do your best to make sure they're the right fit in the role. You put them in the role, you do your best to support them and help them get there. And then if you discover it's not the right role, help them discover which one is the right role, right? And then there's no reason to, capitulate that relationship. You should keep it intact. And I really watch a lot of top agents. It doesn't end well when they end with their people. And I think it's because, number one, they haven't been high touch with the person. I think there was one point in the conference that I heard several times from several different speakers of helping the person, helping them figure out what their goals are or learning what their goals are, and then helping them build out an opportunity map for themselves.
Yep.
And I think we get so wrapped up in our goals and our dreams and what we're trying to accomplish, and we see them as a person that's just going to help us do that, instead of a person that if we just got up every day, had the right person in the right role and helped them reach all their goals, we wouldn't have to worry about any of ours.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. That was a good one too. Oh, I did just find the touch, one of the touches. I thought this was great for real estate agents at any level of the business. Gary described the difference between physically touching versus virtually touching. So he said, make a list. On the left side, you have physically touching. On the right, you have virtually touching. And he said, make a list of every touch that you are touching your clients. How? And are you touching them physically or virtually? And then make a list of what you do on each side, because he said the side that you're missing on is the reason that you're losing clients. because
Oh, wow.
he said that he bets a lot of people are either like 90% virtually and 10% physically, or they're really, really heavy on the physically side and the mailers and, the whatever, that they're missing them virtually. And he said that that really needs to look more like a balance, because obviously people do business with people, not companies. And so he said, whatever side you're missing, he said that you can almost bet that that's the reason that you're losing clients. That was a huge aha for me personally, for my team. So I'm sure it probably was for other people.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool, because that is so true, especially the day and age we're moving into. I do see that a lot with agents. I see some that just don't want to really talk to anybody or do anything. They just want to do everything virtual because that's easier for them. I love that. And, I'm always looking for ways I can do one activity and satisfy several things. So I always go back to, we have so many opportunities, especially for those that are with KW. I was just telling someone the other day that I don't understand why when we teach career visioning, you're not bringing your best client with you. Why are you not picking up your best client that gives you the most business and say, I'd love to treat you to this class called Fierce Conversations, because you will create such beholdenness for that gift that you give people. You're already going to be at the class, so you're going to get to learn how to have those conversations better. And at the same time, you're multiplying your effort because you're sitting someone next to you that's your best client. And then I said, take that even a step farther and take someone you really care about, like your child or your spouse or your sister, your sibling, somebody. And now I've multiplied my one full day that I'm going to be somewhere, because I get so frustrated with top agents when I invite them to a class that I know is going to change the trajectory of what they're trying to accomplish and hitting their goals. And they say, all day? It's an all day class? I'm too busy for that. And so I think there's so many ways you could do the physical touch and add value in stuff that you already have available to you, right there. Career visioning. How many business owners are in your database that struggle with how to hire the right people? And if you got to go to career visioning to learn how to hire the right people, take a few of them with you. I promise you, and I want somebody out there to try this and give me your return on investment. I promise you, no matter what you have to pay for that class, for their ticket, it's going to pay for you tenfold. So I love this. This might be the best thing we've given them today, besides the 350, 175, 233, 311, 26, and 7.
Yeah, I know. There's so many just quick, good things. And actually, you just reminded me of something I need to register for today. But my financial advisor, and a man who's a huge mentor of mine in Kentucky, he owns a very large financial planning business. And he actually I just got an email from him that he said he's bringing Andy Andrews to speak at our church at an event that he's hosting, who wrote The Traveler's Gift, and many other things too. But he said, as a client of mine and as a fellow leader, I wanted to invite you to this, bring somebody that you know. And I thought, well, that's genius, because one, he's given back to me as value. And two, then by me bringing somebody along, then I'm going to introduce them to Dave. And it's like, why are we not doing? Yeah. I mean, there's so many things like that.
Yeah, I love leverage. I could talk about leverage of time, money, and relationships all day long, but Dana, we are out of time. So is there one last point that you are just dying to give them that we haven't given them already?
Oh my gosh. Okay. What about three? Okay. Three quick sentences. The first one is, whatever you track, you improve. Gary Keller. Whatever you track, you improve. I loved that. I loved when Cody Gibson said, you don't have to be great to start, but you really have to start to be great. And I thought, man, that's a really, really, really good one. And then this is something that was just a good reminder for me. If you don't tell your story, somebody else is.
So true. So true. I love that. I love it. Well, I'm going to tell you, we probably could have done this for like a whole month of podcasts, because we got so many.
I have so many.
Got so many. But if I were you out there, I would make a sign, put it in my office that said 350, 175, 233, 311, 26, and 7 appointments per week. And that would be my mantra moving forward with my real estate business. And I'm sure you got many other great tips that you can use. And so remember, if you would like to come on the podcast and have Dana and I help you with an opportunity, a challenge, or just kind of talk through something with us, we'd love to have you as our guest. Submit your name to us at info@lindamckisack.com with a brief description of what you would love to talk about. And remember, the more you tell us about you and your business, the more we're going to be able to help you with whatever it is that we're going to help you with. So I want to say thanks for joining us today. And Dana, I'll see you next week.
Okay, see you then.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.